Good morning, everybody. The following calls are taken from editions of Mail Call, printed in the Herald-Mail from January 9 to January 20, 2012, which can be viewed online in their entirety at www.herald-mail.com. That's right, I have nothing else to say. Except for the rest of the video, First up, from the town where I grew up, Clear Spring. If you voted for President Obama in the last election or plan to vote for him again, you fall into one of three categories. You're hooked on government entitlements, or you live in a vacuum, or you hate this country so much you're willing to sacrifice the best place on earth to live, America, for Obama's hope and change. Think about it. Thought about it. I don't live in a vacuum. I definitely don't hate this country, so I guess I must fall into the first category. And you know, now that I think about it, I think I am hooked on government entitlements. I drive on public roads, I was educated by public schools, I use the public library, I listen to public radio, I watch public television, I treasure our publicly funded state and national parks, I enjoy the peace of mind that comes with the protection provided by public police departments and fire companies, not to mention the military, so yeah. I am hooked on government entitlements. And I am voting for Barack Obama. I am sick and tired of people criticizing Barack Obama when they don't even know how great he really is. He is without a doubt the greatest president this country has ever had, and we need to admit this fact soon. Clear Spring. Another one from Clear Spring. And a pro-Obama call, no less. You know, it's lucky for this caller that mail call is anonymous, because Clear Spring ain't exactly Obama country, although it is definitely country. And look, I'm sympathetic. I think Obama's pretty great, but calling him the greatest president we've ever had is overstating it just a bit. Just off the top of my head, I can think of quite a few presidents who were better than Obama's been so far, and two of them, Abe Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt, were even Republicans. What the hell happened to that party? Anyway, I don't blame you for overrating Obama. I mean, he's a smart, laid-back, incredibly likable guy. We haven't had a president anywhere near this cool since John Kennedy was bird-dogging chicks at the White House. And if you're a young person, of course you're probably going to think Obama's the greatest. I mean, when I was a kid, I thought Ronald Reagan was the greatest president ever. But I was born in 1980. What the hell else was I going to think? I am calling concerning the article in the paper about the homeless at the post office. If everybody would lend a hand and help these people, you wouldn't have to worry about walking over them in the post office. Lend a hand instead of judging. Clear Spring. 3 in a row from Clear Spring. Way to get printed in mail call, C-Town. Represent. So white. As for the homeless, of course we should be actually helping them instead of complaining when they take advantage of public buildings to avoid freezing to death. But you know, if only we lived in an area where there were many, many hundreds of churches, including some very wealthy ones, all founded on the teachings of a man who commanded them to help the poor, maybe they can do something about it. Oh, I'd just like to comment that President Obama is sending this country to hell in a handbasket. Now he wants to do away with our military. He wants to set us that we can only fight a war on one front. What happens if we get hit on more than one side in this country? And it will happen eventually. So we have our hats off to President Obama. He's selling this country down the drain. Funkstown. I could talk about how baseless and bogus your complaints are, or I could just show you some pictures. Check out this graph of the 5 countries who spent the most on their militaries in 2010. See the U.S., the big green heart on there on the far left? See everybody else? Here's another way of looking at it. See how our military spending compares to the rest of the top 5 combined? It's true that Obama would like to cut nearly $500 billion from military budgets over the next 10 years, but most of that would be cuts in planned spending. In other words, we'll still be spending more on the military in the future than we are now, just not as much more. And by the way, when politicians talk about spending cuts in other areas, that's usually what they mean too. Alan Powell's latest fable, Progressive Movements Improve America, suggests that most Americans are too slow to appreciate the noble and courageous government programs that progressives enacted for the public good. Thanks to the progressive movement's war on poverty, we now have more people on food stamps than ever. Thanks to the progressive movement, Maryland now has $19 billion in unfunded pension liabilities. Can't afford milk because the price of gas is too high? That's progressive improvements at work. Smithsburg. Ever attended or sent your kid to a public school? Ever checked out a book or used a computer at a public library? Ever driven on a public road or taken a public bus or train? Ever visited a museum or a state or a national park or a Civil War battlefield? Ever been paid overtime? Ever had a weekend off? Ever been paid a minimum wage? Ever worked in a place with a required minimum standard of safety? Ever been protected from racial or sexual discrimination? If you're not a landowner or not white or a woman, ever voted? That's progressive improvements at work. Your turn. Just wanted to say that I see a couple of people calling about the Hagerstown Suns. I believe that we should do everything to keep the Suns in Hagerstown. As the Washington Nationals continue to grow, we're one of the few teams that can actually say that we have a minor league baseball team, and we would lose revenue. Hotels, restaurants, it does bring people in. I was at a Suns game, and people came from Ohio for a weekend that I was talking to them. So we definitely need to keep the Suns in Hagerstown. We need to do whatever it takes to fix the old municipal stadium and make it a gem of a ballpark. Hagerstown. Yes, not for the first time, the Hagerstown Suns are thinking about pulling up stakes and leaving town. This time for Winchester, Virginia. I love the Suns, and I like having them in Hagerstown, and I think we should feel lucky that we even have a team, since this place can be kind of a shithole sometimes. But you know what? If the Suns really want to leave, I say leave. No hard feelings on my end. Go somewhere else where hopefully more people will appreciate you. That's the most discouraging thing about Hagerstown to me. There's so much history here, so many good things about our community and our culture, and so many people living here who don't give a fuck about any of it. I'm just calling about you taking some of the comics out of the paper. I am a senior citizen, and I've been reading these three all my life practically, and I just think you all went toward the younger generation when you took out Apartment 3G, Mary Worth, and Rex Morgan. Those are my three favorites, and I'm just really upset about it. Hagerstown. As I mentioned briefly last time, the Herald-Mail recently cut back on the number of comics it publishes in its daily edition and confined the remaining comics largely to a single page. And the mail callers have not been happy. Here's another one. I'm calling about the comics. You should have left out Tundra, Dilbert, and the Born Loser and left in Apartment 3G, Mary Worth, and Rex Morgan. I appreciate them more than any of the rest of them in the whole comics. I'd rather see them than anything else. My sister also believes in the same thing. Smithsburg area. And another one. In my opinion, the Herald-Mail lost its greatest benefit when it took out Pearls Before Swine. Give us back Pearls. Sibyllsville, Maryland. And finally from Boonesboro, I agree with the other readers regarding the removal of the comics. Your paper's not only pathetic, it's pitiful. Why don't you remove the bridge game, the horoscope, and put the comics back in? That's something that's worth reading and everybody likes. Pathetic and pitiful will raise no argument from me, but where the fuck have you people been all these years while the Herald-Mail has shamelessly promoted churches, showered attention on every quasi-celebrity that comes within 20 miles of here, from Kirk Cameron to Kevin Federline, selected its cultural coverage solely on the basis of what's entertaining to the kids, employed writers incapable of composing a decent sentence, and photographers who barely know which end of the camera to look through, exhibited embarrassingly unprofessional editorial standards, and just generally been the shittiest newspaper in the world. What, it's okay if they pander to religious interests and ignore everything not of interest to either 6-year-olds or the elderly, so long as they don't fuck with your favorite comics? You know, maybe it's not the Herald-Mail's fault. Maybe we have exactly the paper we deserve. And on that happy note, thanks for watching.